On March 11th, 1991, Steffi Graf's streak of 186 weeks ranked number one as the number one women's tennis player ends when she is replaced by Monica Seles. After nearly 4 years as a top player in women's tennis from 1987 to 1991, she reigned as the undisputed number one women's tennis player. No injuries, no slumps, no challengers. But how good was she? And what made her so unstoppable for almost 4 years? And what finally ended her dominant streak? We're going to dive into Steffi Graf and her greatness today on Daily Sports History. Welcome to Daily Sports History. I'm Ethan Reese, your guide, as you daily learn more about sports history, increasing your sports knowledge. Now, Steffi Graf, as you might guess, is from Germany, specifically West Germany at the time. And she was introduced to tennis at a young age because her father, Peter Graf, was a former tennis player turned coach. But he had a disciplined, no-nonsense approach to his training and was a foundation that helped her rise and her talent show early on. And at the age of 13, she was already showing potential beyond her years, progressing through the ranks in the Germany youth tennis rank. In Germany youth tennis, the world took notice in 1982 when she defeated Chris Evert, one of the top-ranked players, in an exhibition match. And in 1985, when she was 16, she made her major breakthrough with her first WTA title at the Kremlin Cup in Moscow. And this was the real start of her rise to being one of the most elite tennis players to ever take the court. And starting in 1986, she began to challenge the best in women's tennis. And in 1987 at the French Open, she showed that she could really take over the number one spot, beating one of the best in the world, Martina Navratilova, who was ranked number one at the time, to win her first Grand Slam. And she continued to move up in the standings, getting in the top three, steadily climbing until on October 17th, 1987, which was the day she became the number one tennis player, according to the WTA, the Women's Tennis Association. This was the first time in her career overtaking Martina Navratilova, who had held it for 156 weeks, over 3 years. And this would begin Graf's streak that would overtake Martina Navratilova's. And the way that Graf did this was unique. She had the Graf forehand where she would jump as she hit a forehand, giving her extra power, and she was relentless on the courts, and she never tired out. She was known almost more as a runner than she was a tennis player. And she used this stamina to be able to hold the number one spot for years. She created rivals throughout her career, especially with Martina Navratilova and Chris Evert, and would create a new one in Monica Seles. She would head into 1988 as the number one tennis player and do something no one has ever done before, and only Serena Williams, Rafael Nadal, Andre Agassi, and Novak Djokovic have done since, where she would win the Golden Slam. Now, if you don't know what the Golden Slam is you have the 4 Grand Slam tournaments, which are the Australian Open, the French Open, Wimbledon, and the US Open. And then you have the Olympics. So if you win all 4 Grand Slams and Olympic gold, that is called a Golden Grand Slam. It's a rare feat. You can only do it every 4 years. And she was able to do it with ease, winning in straight sets of the French Open, beating rival Martina Navratilova at Wimbledon, beating Gabriele Sabatini at the US Open, and beating Sabatini again at the Seoul Olympics to win gold. Now, it wasn't easy for her. She had challenges. And one thing that's always a challenge is to be consistent. In the following year, she went on to win the Wimbledon Open over Martina Navratilova again. In 1990, she started to fall off, losing the French Open in 3 sets, and Monica Seles beating her at the US Open when she was just a teenager. This would be her future rival and who would take away her number one title in the future. And Monica Seles was quickly climbing up the rankings, putting Steffi Graf's number one seed in jeopardy. But on March 11th, 1991, Monica Seles finally caught up to Steffi Graf. We've done an episode on Monica Seles before about when she was stabbed on the court, which was actually related to Steffi Graf. as a crazed Steffi Graf fan was the one that stabbed her for taking the number one position away from Steffi Graf. They will always be connected for this reason. And as we talked about in that episode, Monica Seles won 8 Grand Slam tournaments in 2 years as a teenager. Steffi Graf was another teenage prodigy as well. But this didn't stop her from having success after this happened. Unfortunately, after Monica Seles was stabbed, Steffi Graf did take over the number one seed again and would hold it off and on for years, totaling a record 377 weeks at number one. That's over 7 years of being the top tennis player in the world. Many pro tennis players don't even last 7 years, and she was 7 years as the best. Though her record would be passed on the men's side by Novak Djokovic, who has a total of 428 days at number one. And for the streaks on the men's side, her record would be passed by Roger Federer, who held the record for 237 weeks at number one. But she was tied by Serena Williams, who reached the same exact total, which is crazy to think about, being that good and being that close to beating the record and not beating it. But it just shows how great they are. And Steffi Graf is often talked about as one of the greatest tennis players of all time, winning 900 singles matches and having over 107 career titles. She won over $21 million in prize money during her career and was inducted into the Tennis Hall of Fame in 2004. She also won 173 doubles tournaments, reaching as high as third ranked, and won the 1998 Wimbledon Championship with her doubles partner. And in 2008, she would be inducted into the German Sports Hall of Fame. And upon her retirement, tennis great Billie Jean King said Steffi Graf is definitely the greatest women's tennis player of all time. Now, it's up for debate, but she's definitely in the conversation. Because not only was she great, she was consistent, and you do both to become a legend. I want to thank you for listening to today's Daily Sports History. If you want more tennis information, check out the Fantastic Tennis Podcast, where you get a unique and high-energy podcast geared to make you the ultimate tennis sports fan, bringing you all you need to know about tennis every week with weekly drama, comedy, and top stories of professional tennis. We'll put a link in the description below for you to check them out, and come back tomorrow for more Daily Sports History.